Hello everyone, and welcome to another A Liverpool Story podcast with your host Geek Boy Meta, otherwise known as me. So, something a bit different today, and also just a quick explanation. This could actually, I've done 4 podcast episodes so far. This could potentially end up being number 6 and not number 5. I haven't worked it out yet, but basically, if you're watching this as number 6, I would have done the podcast for the start of the new season with the Premier League fixtures drop on Wednesday. But I might also just do like a separate thing for that, so I haven't quite decided yet. So if this is episode 6, you're wondering why it's episode 5, just ignore. Anyway, so I thought I'd do something a little bit different today, seeing as it's the middle of the season and, the middle of the pre-season even. I wish it was the middle of the season. And unfortunately, we've hit that rather annoying lull where bugger all is happening, for want of a better phrase, and it's all international football, under-21s, the Club World Cup, which I'm sure you'd probably agree that none of us have any remote interest in whatsoever, quite honestly. So, yeah, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Basically, how this came about is I was on, I don't know if it was Twitter the other day. I try not to go on that as much as I can do. But I think while I was on it, I saw a post from, it was either Red Men or Anfield Rap, basically saying that a certain legend of our football club, a Mr. John Barnes, signed for Liverpool. Well, this was like a couple of weeks ago, but basically John Barnes signed for Liverpool 38 years ago. So it was 1987 when he first signed from Watford, which is just insane because I actually remember John Barnes playing, and I am old enough, as you'll see by the grey beard, to have seen John Barnes play for real, as many of you will have done as well a couple of times, which was just amazing. I'll get onto that in a minute, but I just wanted to do a podcast in and around John, basically, because it quite nicely explains why I'm a Liverpool fan. So some of you that follow me on social media, Blue Sky, Threads, etc., you'll probably have heard this story before, but I'll tell it again because it will make a podcast in the not brilliant content period of time known as the summer, shall we say. Anyway, so what happened was, young lad, that would be me, in Derby, in a lovely little hamlet called Allestree, and if you're from Derby, you'll know where that is, decided to disturb his father while the man was enjoying the World Cup. The World Cup being Italia 90, which, if you're from my generation, is everyone's favourite World Cup. I know people have got this revisionist thing now, saying, oh, it wasn't really that good, blah, blah, blah. Just ignore them. It was the best tournament you will ever see, international football-wise, at the end. Simple as that. Anyway, little rant over. So, little Meta runs into the living room to demand his father play with him. And his father, the great Leo Gabbiano, love you dad, was watching Colombia versus Cameroon. And I had no interest in football at that point. I barely even watched the match. I constantly used to come into the living room and demand why Tom and Jerry wasn't on instead of the Barclays Division 1. Yes, folks, that's what the Premier League used to be called. Old man again. And my father would explain that he was at the time, a 31-year-old adult with his house, and I was just some annoying 7-year-old disturbing his enjoyment, which as a parent now I can totally get. Anyway, long story short, I was watching Cameroon against Colombia with my old fella, and I saw this guy called Roger Miller score this goal. I think it was against Rennie Higuita, him of the Scorpion kick at Wembley, if any of you guys remember that. And Miller basically scored, and I think he's got 2 goals in the match. I might be wrong on that. He definitely got the one, and he went over and did this shimmy. I'm not going to demonstrate it because I'm currently on the Kirk Salabi. I don't think people want to see me shimmying. Anyway, And I just thought this was brilliant. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, wow, I didn't know footballers were allowed to do funny dancing, this, that and the other. And from there, I decided to watch the rest of the tournament with my father, which I'm sure he was absolutely delighted about. But anyway, after the Cameroon match, as a family, we sort of said that we'll support Cameroon because my old man was from Ghana and thought, well, at least we've got African representation. But then obviously there was also England. Obviously I'm half English, as you might have told by the voice. And they went to the England hotel to do one of those little previews. Like around the camp, and do you think you'll win the next match, and blah blah blah, how many beers have you drunk, etc etc. At least it was in the 90s. And obviously there was all the stuff about Gaza, because we had Gaza mania in and around that time. But my attention was taken by this, to say the least, tricky winger who was English but was born in Jamaica, otherwise known as Mr. John Barnes. And it wasn't that he'd done anything spectacular in the 1990 World Cup, but he'd actually got massively criticised for it, for not doing well enough. I can't really comment because I can't remember the group stages of England very well. I started watching from the quarterfinals when England played Cameroon. I think John might have actually lost his place, to be honest. I can't remember that. I don't know if he played the semi-final. I think he played the quarters, but I don't know if he played the semi-finals. Anyway, long story short, basically they showed this highlights package of John Barnes, but it wasn't for England. It was this football team that played in red. And I was mesmerised completely straight away. I'd never seen anything like... I mean, obviously I'd seen Maradona and Pele, and before anyone says, I'm not comparing John Barnes to either of those two, but you get what I mean. And I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. And for context, I don't mean this the way it sounds, but John Barnes is obviously black. And at that point, obviously there's millions of black footballers now, not back to islands anymore, but at that point there were a lot, but not as much as you had now, and it was just very rare to see black footballers playing for elite football teams at the point when I started watching it, at least anyway. Obviously the situation's reversed now, and like I said, half the normal population don't bat an eyelid about that sort of thing anymore, but at the time it was quite rare to see someone like Barnes in that sort of position. And basically I ended up asking my old man, I was like, Dad, who's that guy? He said, it's John Barnes' son. Oh wow, who does he play for? And as a little funny aside, it's a good job I didn't ask him in the 1986 World Cup, really. Anyway, if any Watford fans are watching, sorry, I do apologise. I do that joke to death. It's not meant to be insulting, I do. Apologies in advance. But yeah, he said John Barnes plays for Liverpool. And so you're talking, this is July 1990? And I said, all right, I'll support Liverpool then. And here I am 35 years later. So yeah, that's the very abridged, quick version of the story. But I just said it at the time thinking, oh, I'll just dip in and out whenever John Barnes is playing. But then I discovered that Liverpool had other not too shabby footballers like Peter Beardsley and Ian Rush and Steve McMahon and Ray Houghton and Steve Nicol. And Alan Hansen and Gary Ablett, God rest his soul, Bruce Grobbelaar, etc, etc, etc. And it turns out Liverpool were one of the best, if not the best side in England at that time. And I was like, oh, cool, nice one, I'll just watch Liverpool then. So the first ever match I saw live, if the younger people can believe this, was Liverpool versus Man United, live on ITV. So this would be September 1990, I guess. And Man United were not as good as they once were. Man United weren't, I wouldn't say they're as bad as they currently are now, but they weren't exactly pulling up hundreds of trees at that point. And basically Liverpool destroyed them 4-0, and John Barnes was unplayable in that match. The guy was absolutely superb. And from there, basically, I just kept an eye on him all the time, watched a lot of the Reds matches, as many as I could. started falling in love with the team, cried whenever we lost, which wasn't that much, but we actually lost the league to Arsenal that season when I was just shy of 11 years old, and I was absolutely devastated and thought it was the worst defeat that I'll ever see as a Liverpool fan. Yeah, little did I know 34 years later there would be other horrendous defeats that even eclipsed that one. So but in that season, and this is why John's so special to me, my dad brought me tickets, because we used to live in Derby, as I say, and he brought me tickets to see Liverpool versus Derby County at the old baseball ground, which was Derby County Stadium. Obviously, they've got a new fantastic stadium now. By the way, cheap plug, there is a stadium tour video of Derby County's ground on the Geek Boy Meta channel, if you want to see it, under Geek Boy Does Football. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So, my old man surprises me with these tickets, and my immediate thought was, never mind the rest of the players, I'm going to see John Barnes. This is brilliant. And, yeah, it was still to this day, obviously because I've lost my father, one of the best days of my entire life. It was brilliant. It was one of the few times I got to see Liverpool with my old fella, and we won 7-1. Sorry Derby County fans, do apologise. And I was like king of where was I at the time? Lawn School in Derby, that was the one. Yeah, Lawn School, if anyone knows that. And yeah, I got to walk in and basically rub the Derby fans' noses in it, who had been teasing me, basically saying, we're going to thrash you and this, that and the other, blah, blah, blah. I walked in, I was like, all right, guys, how's it going? I wasn't popular for that week. But John Barnes, again, like the Man United game, was unplayable. He was absolutely... It's still probably one of the best. I mean, all the Reds were fantastic that day. Steve McMahon, Houghton, I think, played. Rushy got a couple, I want to say. I'm sure John Barnes got two because he scored at our away end. And he was every bit as good as you see on the TV. Oh, there's a plane. Sorry for podcast listeners. He was sensational. It's still probably the best live performance that I've ever seen from a footballer in the flesh. Not far off. I mean, I've seen some amazing performances. I mean, just this season, I got the pleasure of seeing Alexis McAllister against Tottenham, and he was sensational on that night. Man of the match, in my opinion. They were all great, all the lads this season, but he was fantastic. But John Barnes' performance that day will live with me forever. And what made it even better, or worse at the time, was that Dad was an autograph hunter, and he was a very stoic Ghanaian. Dad didn't care if you were a roadside sweeper or a company director. He just didn't have that in him. He just saw people as people. So basically, we got outside, the Liverpool coach was about to leave, and obviously people are getting autographs, as it was back in the day, because we didn't have selfies and stuff. So Dad just parts the crowd, walked right up to all Liverpool players, thrust an autograph book. So he got Rushy's autograph, Steve McMahon's, Ray Houghton's, possibly Steve Nicol. I've got all these autographs somewhere in my Liverpool hideout upstairs. Anyway, and then he goes to John Barnes, and he's like, I can't do a Ghanaian accent, but I'll give it a go. He's like, oh, hello John, this is my son. Son, please say hello to Mr. John Barnes. And he pushes me forward, and I'm just like, oh my God, oh wait, that's John Barnes. And yeah, I was absolutely scared to death, but John, if you were watching this, you were awesome. Perfect gentleman, lovely bloke. Asked me if I enjoyed the match, and I went, if you're listening on the podcast, by the way, that was me doing an impression of whimpering. And I was like, yes, thank you, it was very good. That's all I could eke out, basically. He said, oh, I'm glad you liked it, or something along them lines. I can't remember, because it was like 35 years ago, but he was very, very, very nice. Took the time to speak to us. And he was, still is, obviously, just a lovely, lovely man. And yeah, it's still one of the best moments of my life, probably because I got to enjoy it with my dad, and obviously I don't get to do that now, and it's still one of my great regrets that I didn't get to see us lift the league title with him. Right, I'm going to avoid crying. I don't want to cry on a podcast because that's weird. Also, I'm in the middle of Kirk's Abbey and there's people looking at me in a minute. So, but yeah, no, it was. It's still one of the greatest memories of my life. So, thank you to my dad and thank you to John Barnes. Anyway, going forward, John was amazing, and then he suffered a lot of injuries, sort of between mid 92. I think he missed the FA Cup final that year, and sort of 94, and there was a lot of talk, I think, at the time of him going to Marseille, because Marseille at that point were like bad boy. They were like PSG are now, basically. They had all the money and all the players were going either there or Serie A, because they were the big teams and the big leagues, the French and the Italians at the time. It looked like John was going to go there because Liverpool weren't giving him a wage increase. Anyway, long story short, he stayed during the soonest years. Played probably, I'm guessing, half the games, I would have thought. And then enter Roy Evans. Now, I'm not sure if Roy and John, I'm not speculating, but I don't know if they necessarily had the best relationship. I think they got on reasonably okay, so I don't know if there was a thing or anything when Roy sort of got rid of him for Ince, Paul Ince, when he came in, but basically John Barnes was like a fantastic left winger, and Roy basically turned him into a central midfield player, like a holding midfield player. Not holding, but like basically like a Pirlo, just like pinging balls all over the place and just setting up play. And for, I would say, even with young rose-tinted spectacles that I'm probably misremembering, he was brilliant for 18 months. The League Cup winning team, I think I'm right in saying John set up both Steve McManaman's goals in the McManaman final. So he was a great help to people like Jamie Redknapp, Robbie Fowler, Steve McManaman, Rob Jones, all people like that. And in the 95-96 season, in my opinion, he was even better. His performance against Newcastle, the 4-3, obviously Stan Collymore always gets the headlines because of the goal in that sensational match, but John was absolutely brilliant. Maybe not so much in the first half, because I don't think Liverpool played very well in that from what I remember, but the second half he was really, really good. And he didn't have the impact that he did as a left winger, but he would still come up with these moments. I remember trying to see it on YouTube, but there was this amazing 30-yard dipping shot against Tottenham at White Hart Lane, and it just came out of nowhere. He literally just belted it right. I think it was the top right hand corner. And then I remember another goal against Southampton, where he basically, Southampton keeper basically accidentally kicked it to the Liverpool player, but it was well over the halfway line, and Barnes literally just cushioned it into the goal from the halfway line, as if he was just I don't know, kicking the ball to his kid or something like that. But in that period, and my last memory of John, before I end this, has to be the goal against Blackburn Rovers. Now, if you're from the 90s, you won't need it describing, you'll know exactly what I'm on about. The overhead kick at Ewood Park. To this day, I'm not sure if it's still been the top 10 of goals I've seen, but it's not a million miles off. Just that, I think it was Stigling Bjornby crossed it in from the left, and Barnes literally, it was the most perfect connection. Overhead kicks it, top right hand corner. It was just sensational goal from a sensational footballer. There's not much more I can say about John, really, except that, and I know there'll be a lot of newer Reds who will disagree with me on this, and probably a lot of older Reds, but any football team, Liverpool, best 11, John Barnes has to go in it, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of competition for that area with for obvious reasons, but I actually did do this a while ago. But my all-time 11 would be Alisson, Van Dijk, Jamie Carragher. For selfish reasons, John Arnorisa, because I'm sorry, he was a cult hero and I absolutely loved him. And then Andy Robbo. Then from there, you'd have Xabi Alonso. I think I went with Xabi Alonso, Steven Gerrard and John Barnes. How's that for a midfield? Not the most defensively minded, I have to say, and then obviously you've got to have Godfowler, Mo Salah and Luis Suarez. So that would be my all-time. I never got the pleasure of seeing Kenny play, unfortunately. Obviously he would definitely go in had I seen him play, and I'd probably still put him in there for the highlights, but I didn't see Kenny Dalglish or Graham Souness play, so they would probably go in, I would have thought, had I seen them. But yeah, that's from the 35 years I've watched Liverpool, that would be my team. Anyway, John Barnes definitely always has to go in that team for me. Yeah, like I said, a bit of a random podcast, this one. But when I saw the anniversary date and that it'd been, 38 years, I just felt as if I should do something to mark John. And not that he'll ever see this, but just to say thank you to the bloke, because I wouldn't have had all the wonderful memories with my friends. I wouldn't have got to do the cool stuff I did with my dad when he took me to Liverpool. I wouldn't have seen us win all our trophies. I certainly wouldn't have seen the league this year. And it was just very special to win the league. And just thinking about my dad, it's a shame he didn't get to see it, but it was just a wonderful thing to have with him not being there, basically. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say on the podcast, really. So, like I said, John Barnes, yeah, one of the best, if not the best player I've ever seen play for Liverpool Football Club. I know that's a big pool of people. You're going to have 50 people saying 50 different things, but for me, John Barnes is the reason I got into football. And if I ever get to see him again, I'd just like to say thank you very much, John. Thank you for all the memories. You're an awesome, lovely, conscientious man. And just thank you for being one of the best footballers of all time. And thank you very much for getting me into Liverpool Football Club, really. So yeah, folks. Anyway, before I start crying, that's the end of this week's podcast. Like I said, this might be week 6. I'm still working out what I'm going to do for next week. So I'm probably going to have that as the podcast when we get all the fixtures out, and hopefully at that point, I'm very much hoping by the time this comes out, whatever happens, Florian Wirtz will be a Liverpool player. He needs to be, for those of us with stress and anxiety issues. I know we're pretty much almost over the line, but I'm still thinking there could be a complete disaster. I'm sure there won't be, but like I said, I do get very neurotically nervous about this sort of thing until I actually see someone in a red shirt. So, and hopefully Milos Kerkez as well. I would have thought when the transfer deadline opens up, because we're in the middle of that stupid little mini break at the minute, I would have thought we'll maybe be talking about some players going. Obviously Darwin didn't go at the time of recording to Saudi, but he could still go maybe afterwards, I don't know. But yeah, I would imagine things will start ramping up, because I mean, we're only about, at the time of recording this now, we're only about 3 weeks till the lads come back, would you believe, for pre-season. So, and they've also just announced we've got friendlies against Preston, and there's a double header against Athletic Bilbao, and obviously we've got Palace at Wembley. Very quickly on that, I can't promise anything, but I'm hoping to get to one of those if I can, to see a pre-season game. I am trying currently to talk my brother into going into Wembley, which I don't think he's hugely keen on paying 300 quid to watch a glorified friendly, but we'll have to wait and see about that, because I'm not sure if we can do it at that point. But I'm definitely going to try and see one, and obviously I will be definitely going to see Liverpool. Like I said, I've managed to see him a couple of times in the last year or so, and I've seen the Legends matches and been to the parade, but I do want to see them a lot more. So my aim next year is to get to 5 matches, maybe 5 or 6 if I can, if the money allows, because obviously it's very expensive when you go in hospitality. But like a lot of Liverpool fans out there, and you'll know this yourselves, it's just very difficult sometimes getting tickets, and hospitality unfortunately is the only way you can get it. Managed to get some good tickets on a seat loader for the Tottenham game. I think it still cost us about 150 quid, which is far too much, but what can you do? It's a captive audience, unfortunately. God knows how long the waiting list for season tickets. But yeah, anyway, that's my little rant over about tickets. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening on YouTube podcast, and thanks everyone if you've watched this as a video. So like I said, keep an eye out for next week. I'm probably, this will be last week, but I'll be recording something to do with the fixtures anyway. So if this ends up being first, you'll know what that means. If this ends up being after, just ignore everything I've said, because you'll know who will play. Anyway.